Hi, my name is Stephen Gauci and welcome back. In this video we'll continue to discuss the blues form. Please go to my website and download the PDF at skype-lessons.gauchimusic.com. This way you can follow along while you're watching the video. I've illustrated the specific type of form that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so now we're on to the next basically evolution of complexity in this 12-bar blues form. Okay, so and what this basically means is more movement. There's more forward motion movement. Okay, in the form we discussed previously in the video right before this one, we had the first four measures of a 12-bar blues form. The first four measures were all the one chord. Okay, so we had if we're in the key of C, okay, for tenor saxophone, okay, for it's B flat concert pitch, okay, but for tenor we're in the key of C right now, and that is the one chord. Okay, so for the first four measures it's the one chord, that's C7, and then in the second two measures it was the four chord, the F7, and then, let me see, so then that was the fifth and sixth measures, and then in the seventh and eighth measures, we go back to the one chord. And then in the ninth measure, we have the five chord, the G7, in the 10th measure, the four chord, the F7, and in the 11th and 12th measure, back to the one chord. That was the basic blues, okay? And I'm just going to run those chord changes for you real quick, just so you have something to compare this more complex form that we're going to explore in just a moment. Okay, so this is basically what we covered in the previous video. So I'm going to run the chord for each measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, for an explanation about that form, and also, you know, a demonstration of how to solo on it, how to approach it, please go to the blues video right before this one. Okay. Now, okay. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take the first measure. Okay, it's the one chord. Okay, and then in the second measure, though, instead of allocating the whole first four measures to the one chord, what we're going to do is we're going to do the one chord in the first measure, and then the second measure we're going to go up to the four chord. We're going to go up a fourth. Okay, so the four chord in the second measure, and then in the third and fourth measure, and then the third measure we're back to the one chord. Let's just take the first three measures. Okay, so now we're at this now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are three statements. That's basically what that is. Okay, so the first measure is the one chord. Now the one chord, the function of the one chord, and you're going to hear that from me a lot. I'm going to talk a lot about function, because function is everything really. C7, it only tells me a collection of notes. That's the information. When I hear C7, it's telling me C, E, G, and B flat. That's all that means. But in relation to the overall form, in relation to the song, C7 doesn't tell me anything, or it tells me a little bit, but not enough. What's important is the function. How is the chord functioning? Is it functioning like a 1 chord? Is it functioning like a 5 chord? Like a 2 chord? Like a 4 chord? And what does that mean? Like, how does a 1 chord function? Okay, when we say function, we mean how does a 1 chord act? Okay, and the way 1 chord acts, generally, I mean, nothing is all the time in music. You know, there's no definite solid rules that can never be broken. It's not that kind of a thing. But for the most part, the way the 1 chord functions is it functions as a statement. Okay, because it doesn't want to go anywhere. It's home. 1 is home. And there's no urge. There's no anxiety. Okay, there's no urge to move around. Okay, but the 1 wants to make a statement about itself. That's what the 1 wants to do. Okay, so we're going to make a statement. So let's say we are going to start on the 3rd, the E natural. Okay, so it's a C7 chord, the 1 chord, and I'm going to start on the 3rd, and it's 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's a statement. So I went 3, the E note, 5, the G note, A, all right, so I went 3, 5, and then A is the 6, and then B flat is the dominant 7, the flat 7. Okay, you know, and again, I started on the 3rd. You know, there's no need for me to start on the C. Okay, the root is being played by the bass player. Somebody's always got the root, so we don't need to play that all the time. Okay, now, so here it is again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's a statement. It's not going anywhere. You know, it's not like you know, I don't want to do this in that first measure. I wouldn't want to do, you know. I mean, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with it. I played all the right notes. Okay, and given the right context, it could work fine. But what the function really wants to do is make a statement. Okay, so okay, now in the second measure we're going to go up to the 4 chord, the F7, and we're just going to repeat that same statement. The 4 chord functions pretty much just like the 1 chord, except it's up a 4th. Okay, so that's how the 4 chord functions. It's also a statement measure. Okay, now remember, when I say a statement measure, okay, when I say, you know, there's a 1 chord and it wants to make a statement, there's a 4 chord and it wants to make a statement, that is the form. That's what form means. There's no form outside of that. There's no like bar lines floating in the air, you know, that the audience can see and that the musicians can see. It's not like that. Okay? If we don't play a statement in those measures, then there's the form, then we're lost. There's no form. That's what it means when we say a 12-bar blues form, that certain things happen in certain places. Okay? That's how it works. So if we don't play the form, then it doesn't happen. Okay, so it's important that we understand that. Okay, so I'm going to go from the beginning now, and I'm going to play the first 2 measures. Okay, I'm going to play the 1 chord, and then I'm going to play the 4 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we go. So we made a statement, and then went up a 4th, and we made the same statement again. It reinforces that statement. Each time we reinforce a statement, it makes it more believable. It makes it stronger. Okay. Now in the 3rd measure, we go back to the 1 chord, and of course we're gonna make that same statement. Okay. So 2, right from the beginning. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now the 4th measure. This is where we really start to change things up a little bit, and We're going to put a 2-5 in the fourth measure. Okay, and now what a 2-5 does, it goes somewhere. It doesn't make a statement. The only reason for a 2 chord to exist is to go to the 5 chord. And the only reason for the 5 chord to exist is to go to the 1 chord. So really, the 2-5 measure, okay, because it's 2 beats of 2 and 2 beats of 5 in the fourth measure now, okay? But what a 2-5 measure does, the way it functions, the way it acts, is it goes it resolves into the 1 chord. But in this case, it's a 2-5 into the fifth measure, which is F7, the 4 chord. Okay, so we're going to do it in the fourth measure. We're going to play a G minor 7 for 2 beats. That's the 2 chord. And we're going to play a C7 for 2 beats. That would be the 5 chord. And then we're going into, in the fifth measure, we go to an F7 chord. Okay, now I know this can be a little bit confusing because in the fourth measure, the C7 is a 5 chord. But in the first measure, the C7 is a 1 chord. And yes, you see, that's just it. Those are actually 2 different chords. Even though they're both called C7, one of them is a 1 chord, and one of them is a 5 chord. And their function, the way they act, is completely different. So they're not really the same chord, even though they have the same letter names. You know, so you know where you put your fingers on your instrument and that kind of thing. Okay, but in reality, a 1 chord and a 5 chord are completely different. They're completely different chords. They do different things altogether. Okay, so just to clear that up. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So for the once again, I'm going to go over the first 3 measures. Okay, and make those 3 statements. Okay, and then I'm going to play something in the fourth measure, going into the fifth measure. So let's see. How about 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so in the fourth measure, the first 2 beats are G minor 7. Okay, so that I'm gonna run the G minor 7 chord for you. Okay, so we have a G, we have a B flat, the minor third, the flat third, and then we have a D, the fifth note, and then we have an F, the flat 7. Okay, that's the first 2 beats of the fourth measure. Then the second 2 beats of the fourth measure, we have the 5 chord, and it's the C7 again. Okay. We have a low C. We have an E, the third note. We have a G, the fifth, and then we have a B flat. Okay. So that's your 2-5. Okay. Now, in the fifth measure, that's where the 4 chord is. Okay, and it's an F7. That's what we're resolving into. Okay. So again, the 4 chord functions much like a 1 chord. Okay, and in this case, it's totally functioning like a 1 chord because a 2-5 in the fourth measure, 2-5 goes to 1. So even though the F7 is a 4 chord, it's functioning like a 1 chord in that measure. Okay, and at that moment, because it's being resolved into, the 2-5 in the fourth measure is resolving into the F7. Okay, it's the 2-5 in the fourth measure is resolving into the 4 chord in the fifth measure. Okay, and so it's functioning as a 1 chord, the 4 chord. Okay, and that's why it's the statement that we made on the 1 chord in the first measure and then the 4 chord in the second measure, and the 1 chord in the third measure, okay? And we make that same statement again in the 5th measure. So in the 4th measure goes into the statement. So from the 4th measure it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 4th measure, okay? And then the 5th measure, that's the 4 chord, okay? So now on the G minor, I go on the B flat. Okay, those are 4/8 notes on the first 2 beats of the 4th measure. And I go B flat, which is the 3rd note in the G minor chord, okay? And then I go down to the A, and then I go down to the G, okay? And then I go down to the F natural, which is the dominant 7, okay? And then it goes into the E natural, and that's the C7 chord. So here's the G minor. And now we're on the C7 chord. Okay, so I go E. Okay, this is now the 3rd beat of the 4th measure. We have E natural, that's the 3rd note in the C7 chord. And then I go to a D flat or a C sharp, all open like this. And that is the flat 9. Okay, so since we're on a 5 chord, the C7 is functioning as a 5 chord in this measure. We can use a flat 9 because whenever there's a 5 chord, you can use a flat 9 on a 5 chord. Okay, and that's basically the only kind of chord that you can use a flat 9 on. Okay, so that's how that works. So we started on the E, and then I went up to, that's the 3rd, and then I went up to the flat 9, the D flat, okay, and then I went to the C natural, and then I went to a B flat, which is the dominant 7. So from the C7 is, okay, so the G minor 7 to the C7, or the 2/5 is this. Okay, now it goes into the 4 chord in the 5th measure, F7. Okay, so I went the first beat of the F7 of the 5th measure is A, and then the second note is C, so it's the 3rd, the 5th, and then D, the 6th, and then E flat, the dominant 7. Okay, and it's the same statement that we made in the first 3 measures. So from the 2/5 into the 4 chord, it goes. Okay, so right from the beginning, one more time, and then we'll move on. So right from the top of the blues, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now the 6th measure. Okay, now in the more basic blues, we have the 4 chord in the 5th and the 6th measure. Okay, now what we're going to do here is we're going to substitute the 4 chord with a minor 4 chord. Okay, so it's instead of being F7 in the 6th measure, we're going to put an F minor 7 in the 6th measure. Okay, and it just gives it a little bit more movement, and you'll hear it's quite a beautiful sound. So I'm going to run the 4 chords. Okay, I'm just going to run the chords for you, and so I'm going to run the 5th measure, the F7, and then I'm going to run the 6th measure, the F minor 7. Okay, and so you can hear how they contrast with each other. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the only difference really is the 3rd. So in the F7 you have the A natural. Okay, it's the major 3rd. And in the F minor 7 we have the A flat, which is the flat 3rd, 3. So we have a descending motion happening now. So now we're moving forward through the chord changes, okay? So, you know, this is the thing, you know, as the form grows in complexity, that means we're creating more movement. That's essentially what it means. It means more movement is happening in the form, okay? So, okay, there's your descending thirds now, okay? So, now, let me see, the statement we made in the fifth measure was, we showed it on 3, and then we went 5, 6, 7, okay? So we're going to make the same statement on the minor 4. We're going to make the same statement on the F minor 7, okay? So we're going to start on the third, but it's going to be the A flat, the minor third. So we did everything exactly the same, exact same statement, except the first note's slightly lower because it's the minor third instead of the major third. So it has this step down movement, right? So right from the fifth measure, it's 3, 4. Okay, now in the seventh measure, we're going to put in the seventh and eighth measures, rather, we're going to put another 2/5 in. Okay, and the true chord's going to be in the seventh measure. It's going to give 4 beats to itself, and then the 5 chord is going to take up the eighth measure. It's going to give 4 beats to itself. However, this 2/5 is going to be going into D minor. It's 2/5 in D minor, and the D minor happens in the ninth measure, okay? So, you know, we're really changing things up a bit here. Be sure that you have the PDF and that you're following along with me, because it's all illustrated there for you. Okay, now, okay, so in the 5, 6, the seventh measure, okay, it's a 2/5 into D minor. We have an E minor 7 in the seventh measure, okay? So I'm going to start from the 4 chord, okay? So in the 4 chord in the fifth measure is F7, 2, 3, 4. And then in the sixth measure is F minor 7. And now this is the 2 chord E minor 7 in the seventh measure. Okay, and then in the eighth measure, we have the 5 chord, A7. Okay, so let's see how this works. So from the fifth measure, we're going to go, keep in mind I'm making all this up right now. This was not preconceived, okay? I'm talking about it with you. I'm thinking about the chord changes, and then I'm making up an example for you right now. None of this was planned, so bear with me if I take a second to gather myself. Okay, so the fifth measure, F7, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let me see. So now what do we do? I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Change it again later. So what we did now is we went we're starting from the fifth measure. So we have F7, and we made this statement starting on the third, the A natural. Now the next measure is F minor 7, the minor 4. Okay, and we're going to start on the third again, but the minor third. Okay, now I'm on an E flat note. Okay, it's the dominant 7 of the F minor 7 chord. Now, the next chord is E minor 7. It's the 2, 5 going into D minor, which happens in the 9th measure. Okay, so here's the E minor chord. Okay, so yeah. That's what I did in the E minor measure, in the 7th measure. Okay, so I started on the dominant 7th, the D natural. Okay, that was for a quarter note. Okay, and then the rest of the notes are 8th notes for that measure. Okay, and I went, so the first note is D natural. Okay, the second 2 notes are B natural, the 5th, G natural, the 3rd, the minor 3rd, and then I go to E. Okay, I just go right down the chord tones, 7, 5, 3, 1, and then I go right back up the chord tones. Okay, so I go 7, 7, 5, 3, 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, I just go down the chord tones and right back up the chord tones. So I'm basically nailing the chord. But it sounds great, right? So from the 4 chord again in the 5th measure. Okay, now, so then what I did now in the this part, that's the A7 chord, and I put a flat 9 in there because this is a 5 chord. We're in the 8th measure. Okay, so the E minor was the 7th measure, that's this. And now we're in the 8th measure, it's the A7 chord, it's the 5 chord. And I start on the 3rd. Okay, the C sharp, and then I go to the 5th. And then I go to the flat 7, the G natural, and then I go to the flat 9, it's a B flat. So essentially I start on the 3rd, and I hit all the chord tones, and I up to a flat 9. I hit C sharp the 3rd, I hit the 5th E, I hit G, the flat 7, the dominant 7, and then I hit B flat, the flat 9. Okay, so. Okay, so now if I put it together with the 2 chord in the previous measure, it's 2, 3, 4. Okay, so one more time, I'm going to do it from the 4 chord. We're in the 5th measure now. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now just to recap, I'm going to do the whole thing from the beginning up to this point. Okay, so now we're starting in the 1st measure of the 12-bar blues. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just want to make a point here that, you know, I just recapped the entire 1st measures for you, and I remembered it all. Okay, and the reason why I can remember it, I didn't write this out. This is not written anywhere. It's just, I just did it right here. Okay, and I'm going through these long explanations, and I still remember what I played, you know, 10 minutes ago or whatever. Okay, the reason that I remember is because I'm making statements that I can remember, because I'm saying something clear and definite. Okay, it's just, that's what a statement is. It's not vague. Okay, you know, this is very easy to remember. 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and that's why I can remember it. Okay, and that's the form too. The form is remembering what you played. Okay, so you know it's just I just want to stress the importance of making sure that you know each measure's function. Okay, it needs to be it has to be carried out. It has to happen. Okay, because that's how we're going to remember everything. You know, the first measure it's a statement. It's a 1 chord. The second measure is the 4 chord. It's a statement. The third measure is a 1 chord. So on and so forth. Okay, if I didn't follow that, if I didn't follow these rules sort of, then I wouldn't be able. I wouldn't remember the form. I wouldn't be able to play it back to you, and it wouldn't be believable really, because you know this is just another form of speech. Okay, so now let's move along. Okay, so from the 4 chord again, 3, 4. Let me see. How about? Let me see. Let me see. How about? There we go. Okay, that was much better. And you know the reason I'm choosing this last phrase that I played instead of the one I played before it is because it just follows the form a bit better. It's more clear. And clarity is the most important thing. Okay, so what I did then is, you know, now let's go back to the 7th and the 8th measures. So we have the E minor 7 for 4 beats, and then we have the A7 for 4 beats, the 2/5 going into the D minor 7 in the 9th measure. Okay, we have D minor 7 in the 9th measure, which is this. It's a 2 chord. And then in the 10th measure, we have the 5 chord, the G7. And then in the 11th measure, we resolve into the 1 chord, the C7. Okay, so from the 10th measure, it's from the 9th measure, it's 2, and then the 10th measure 5, and then the 11th measure 1, and it goes 2, 3, 4. Okay, those are the chords now, and that would be in the 9th measure. We have a D minor chord. It's a D, and then the minor 3rd F, and then the 5th A, and then the C, the flat 7. Okay, and in the 10th measure we have the 5 chord. It's the G7, and we start on the G, and then we have the 3rd. It's the B natural. And then we have the 5th, it's the D natural, and then we have the flat 7, it's the F natural. Okay, and then we go back to the 1 chord, it's C7. Okay, now, let's see. So now we're going to start from the 7th measure, okay, the 2/5 into the D minor. Okay, so this is the 7th measure, E minor, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the E minor 7, I want ba 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 da ba da ba da. Let me see. So it's the E minor. I'm totally singing out of key. So the E minor chord, and then the A7, Right, so yeah, so on the A7 chord we have this phrase we talked about before, and then I add a C sharp on top of that flat 9. Okay, that's on the 4th beat. Okay, so when we get to the D minor measure, we're on an A. It's the 5th note. This A, that's the 9th measure. That's the D minor 7. So here's from the 7th measure, 3, 4. Okay. So ba-da. So the A note is the 5th note of the D minor chord. Okay. And then we have go. That's the 5th note, and then we go to the dominant 7, the C. Go. Okay, so now what's happened is then we hit the C to the A flat. Okay, so we have and that's on the 4th beat of the D minor. So this A flat is the last note we play on the D minor chord. And the A flat, it's, you know, we can call it a flat 5, but it's not really that. What it really is it's the flat 9 in the next measure. It's the flat 9 on the 5 chord in the 10th measure. Okay, so, you know, we have a G7 for the 5 chord, and it's G, B, D, F natural, and then if we put the flat 9. So on the G minor chord we have the measure before that is the 2 chord, 3, 4. Okay, and it carries over the measures, so it's real. You know, the A flat, it's on the tail end. It's on the upbeat of 4 on the 2 chord, and it carries over into the 5 chord. So. And I get it again. Okay, so what happens is we go. Okay, so on the 2 chord, the D minor, we have 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so on the 5 chord on the G7, this is the 10th measure. We begin it with the flat 9, and then we rest 2, 3, 4, and then we hit the flat 9 on the upbeat of 4. It's an 8th note, and this is the A flat, and then you let go of your pinky, and it goes into the G natural. That's the 5th note of the 1 chord of the C7. Okay, go from the D minor 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now in the 11th measure, that 1 chord, we start on the 5th note. We go down to the 3rd note. Now we go down to the root, it's C. And then we end on the dominant 7. The B flat. Okay, and that is a statement, and it's the exact reverse statement as the you know, the original statement. In the first measure we go, and in the 11th measure we go. So in the first measure we work our way up to a B flat, and in the 11th measure we work our way down to a B flat, which is fitting because it's the end of the chorus, so we're working our way back down to the B flat. Okay, now so I'm going to do the entire blues from the very beginning, and again, you know, this is illustrated. This solo I will write out for you. just for you. After I make this video, I'll go and listen to it, and I will write out the solo that we worked on here, so that you can follow along with it. Okay? So right from the beginning, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and one last thing. So, you know, we haven't talked about the 12th measure. Okay, so we got back to the 1 chord in the 11th measure. Okay, now in a standard blues, in a more basic blues form, the 12th measure would also be the 1 chord. Okay, but, you know, in this permutation of the form, the 12th measure is going to be a 2-5 measure, going back to the 1 chord in the first measure. Okay, so it will be the next chords of the solo. Okay, so we reserve the 12th measure only if you're going to continue. Essentially, you finish your solo in the 11th measure. That's it, you're there, you're home. It's done. That's where we finish the phrase. You know, we went ba-da-da-da-da. That was the 11th measure, it's done. Okay? There's no need to fill the 12th measure with sound unless we're going to continue. Okay, so if we were going to continue the 12th measure, it would be a 2-5 into C7. C7 is the 1 chord in the first measure, right? It's the 1 chord. So 2-5 is D minor is the 2 chord, D minor 7 for 2 beats in the 12th measure, and then the 5 chord G7 for the second 2 beats in the 12th measure. Okay, and you know that would be. Okay, and then it goes back to the C chord. That's a C note. Okay, so you know if I were going to continue, so 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I went 2, and that was a straight D minor 7 chord. Okay, starting on a low D. Okay, and then I went. This is the G7 part of the measure, the second 2 beats. Okay, so I go. I start on the B natural. It's the 3rd note of the G7 chord. Okay, and then that's it. And then I go to an A flat as the flat 9. Okay, because we're on a 5 chord. A flat, and then I let go of my pinky, and that turns into G natural. It's the 1 chord. And then the last note is an F natural, the flat 7. Okay, so great G minor 7 chord, and then I start on the 3rd and go down. Okay, and now this puts us up. We're back at the top of the form in the first measure, and it's the 1 chord. Okay, and I do something very similar to the statement I made the first time around in that measure. In the first measure, the last time around, we went. Correct? Okay, so this is a permutation on that. Okay, so this time around, I go. Okay, so instead of going 3, 5, 6, flat 7, like I did in the first time around, in the first measure, I go, this time I go 3, 5, flat 7, and 9, which is a D natural, not a flat 9. Okay, because this is the 1 chord now. Even though it's a C7, it's functioning as a 1 chord in the first measure. So we cannot use a flat 9 in the first measure. But you can use a regular 9. Okay, you can use the D natural. You can't use a D flat on a 1 chord. You can't use a flat 9 rather on a 1 chord, but you can use the natural 9. Okay, so you know. Okay, and then so on and so forth. I would continue with it. Okay, so that about wraps this up, and you know, please check back because we'll be. I'm going to continue to explore in future videos more complex permutations of this 12-bar blues form. Okay, so thanks for coming and have a nice day. Bye.